All right. The Arends translation attrition, ATA articles from German newspapers translated by William Arends, InterStream 130 to 131, Part 1, Translator's Note. Here are articles from the Berlin Morning Post of September 13th, 1917. On the front page of the newspaper were 5 articles about the situation in Russia. Even though the worker and soldier councils are referred to, there still seems to be no awareness at the Central Committee of the Bolshevik Communist Party or any reference to leaders such as Lenin or Trotsky. The main struggle is between Kerensky and Kornilov and the different factions and groups that each are appealing to in order to take the upper hand. It seems that both Kerensky and Kornilov were interested in establishing a government still aligned to the Entente and with ties to political figures were either aristocrats or members of the Duma under the Tsarist regime. Kerensky is reported here to be putting archdukes in his cabinet, and Kornilov was calling on a former member of the Duma, Aleksei Aladin of the Trudoviks Labour Party, who was in exile in England, to join the government that Kornilov wanted to lead. Berlin Morning Post, Thursday, September 13th, 1917. Kornilov in front of the gates of Petersburg, a dispatch of the Reuters Bureau, Petersburg, September 11th. The newspapers have repeated the rumor that the first units of the troops of Kornilov had already arrived in Gatchina, some 30 kilometers from Petersburg. General Kaladin, the Don Cossack of the Don Cossack Hetman, which is a cultural designation of leadership of the Cossacks, had demanded from the government that it accept the ultimatum of Kornilov, and if it does not, then the connection between Petersburg and Moscow will be cut. The newspapers report that the newly appointed general Imbalvale has himself surrounded Kornilov, and the generals commanding the southwest and west fronts also have done so. Kornilov plans, a dispatch from the Reuters Bureau, London, September 12th. The Daily Chronicle reported out of Petersburg that a list of ministers has been sent out by Kornilov together with the representatives of the right-wing parties. Many are unknown names, as well as the name of the leader of the Trudoviks Labour Party from the first Duma of 1906, Aleksei Aladin, who has been in exile in England. It is said that Kornilov intends to name Aladin to the post of Justice Minister. Translator's note, Aleksei Aladin had been a leader of the Labour Party in the 1906 Duma. He was on a diplomatic mission to England in 1907 when the Duma was dissolved, after which he went into exile in England. He had previously been incarcerated by the Tsarist regime and was imprisoned again by the Bolsheviks after he returned to Russia in 1917. He was able to escape from that captivity, and after supporting the Whites in the Russian Civil War, went back into exile in England for the rest of his life. Izvestia, the organ of the Petersburg Workers' Council, was reported by the Reuters Bureau that in recent days Kornilov, to secure his intended success, had been gradually removing the troops that were loyal to the revolution, the provisional government, from Petersburg by using Cossacks and other cavalry, and that they've been abandoned outside Petersburg in order to be replaced inside of it, the newspaper reported, and that those troops did not know why they were being treated in this way. They believed that a majority Menshevik revolt or insurrection had been suppressing them. The former chief of the General Staff, Kornilov, sent Kerensky a telegram in which he imparted that the situation at the front was becoming very serious if the government did not comply with the demands of Kornilov. The report of the ultimatum of Kornilov was made first known late yesterday evening. Its production greatly excited both the political and journalistic circles. The council administers yesterday, during the evening and through a great part of the night, and the executive committee of the Workers' and Socials Council both met to discuss this situation. A proposal was taken up in the Provisional Commission of the Duma to arrest Kornilov with great acclamation. The newspaper Novodye Vremya is banned. A report of the Petersburg Telegraph Agency, Petersburg, September 13th. The government has banned the newspaper Novodye Vremya because of how it had made public the full extent of the proclamation of Kornilov, while the appeal of Kerensky was printed in a condensed form. And I think, just on a side note, I think if we had talked about this a few weeks ago, that proclamation, some people believe, was actually the big push for the revolution to occur. This was the first time people had ever seen a public trial of this caliber. The Daily Mail, according to a report from the Reuters Bureau, made it known that the Minister for the Supply of Foodstuffs had laid down his office because he saw no way to end the disorder in his department. The Novoje Vremya, a newspaper known throughout the world and also in its czarist circles as a newspaper that had become enthusiastic about the revolutionary activities, now appears to be quickly finding its way back, for it now appears to be in favor of a victorious counter-revolution. Kerensky summons the land to oppose Kornilov. A report of the Petersburg Telegraph Agency, Petersburg, September 11th. That government sent out a circular to all government committees in the province to have their complete attentiveness be directed to Kornilov's position and his advance on Petersburg, and they requested that the population remain calm and informed over this situation. This appeal by Kerensky to the army in Petersburg declared that this former generalissimo, who had betrayed the trust of the nation, has now proven his disloyalty in the advance by his troops on Petersburg, and how that faction has weakened the positions on the front. The Minister of Labor, Globolev, summoned all the workers of Russia to be aware of the conduct of Kornilov and requested their continued support of the provisional government. Moscow, September 11th, a dispatch of the Petersburg Telegram Agency. Garrisons, professional trade organizations, workers, and railroad personnel have been told in meetings to uphold and continue to remain loyal to the provisional government. The General Council in Moscow has made a summons directed to the inhabitants of Moscow in which he called for the ancient capital city to behave as though it was one body in the defense of the revolution, so as to lift it up and prevent a civil war. He also said that every city of Russia should gather themselves around and support the government. The cadets, constitutional Democrats, are going into the cabinet of Kerensky. The Grand Dukes Michael and Paul are brought back to Petersburg. Petersburg, September 13th. The first two paragraphs of this article were printed in bold. The cadets, the Constitutional Democratic Party, on the cabinet of Kerensky. Grand Dukes Michael and Paul are brought to Petersburg. Petersburg, September 12th. The Executive Committee of the Cadet Party has informed Kerensky that in order to prevent a civil war, the party has agreed to allow its members to join his new cabinet. It was reported in the newspaper that on the order of the government, the former Grand Dukes Michael Alexandrovich and Paul Alexandrovich have been called from their domiciles in Gatchina and are to be brought back to Petersburg to take on positions in the Ministry of the Interior. This dispatch shows the confirmation of the impression that yesterday's effusive news report that the Petersburg Agency has raised the point that Kerensky has momentarily taken the upper hand. It is naturally difficult to decide whether this is because the cadets now realize that their strongman Kornilov will not be coming through for them, or whether they have relented out of truly patriotic motives. It is probably that Kornilov had not gained the massive support from the army that he felt necessary in order for him to achieve success and be seen as the savior of the fatherland rather than Kerensky. Therefore, indeed, he also lost the support of the cadets, who before this, along with friends in the Entente, saw him as the more suitable man to lead them toward the accomplishment of their imperialistic goal. The above-mentioned Reuters dispatch have also helped these ideas spread to England, where they have also come to realize that the takeover by Kornilov was not going to happen. Thus, all the smoke coming from Reuters that Kornilov's troops were at the gates of Petersburg was shown to be just a soap bubble. But naturally, this is not to rule out such an outcome, for tomorrow could bring new surprises and later bring part 2 of the InterStream ATAs. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it.